Hello, everybody. What's going on? Tobin here with you, as I appreciate you guys tuning into the YouTube page, checking it on out for some thoughts on some things as the Miami Heat are getting set for Game 5 tonight. It'll be boots on the ground at the building. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully take themselves a 3-2 series lead, get themselves back in the win column, and take control back of this series. Now, the interesting thing about tonight is will the Miami Heat be able to turn their shooting around? One of the big talking points after this last game was Duncan Robinson. Mentioned this a little bit in the last video. You guys can go check that out. And by the way, if you guys want to see the radio show, you guys can go to The Ticket Miami, that page right now, youtube.com/The Ticket Miami. Got clips of the radio show up there. Myself, Leroy Horde, still doing the show. Everybody who was looking for it on this page, we have moved over there. I wish that you guys would go subscribe over there. Follow us over there. That is where, if you guys want the content of this program, that's where you got over. So I will put the link down in the description so you guys can find that easy peasy. And go check yourself out some of our show and the silly sauce we got going on over there. But one thing that I wanted to get into was I love social media posts. You know me. I'm boots on the ground, boots on the gram. I love seeing the messages, what's going on here, a little shade, a little bit of a little jabby jabs here and there. And I found this pretty interesting. So Duncan Robinson has obviously not been playing very much. I think he's played like 1 minute in this series thus far. Everybody was pointing out, I myself included, in the last game as the Heat were building a brick house like the third little pig. Well, could you go out there and could you give Dunks a little bit of runski? And let's just see what he's got. Let's see if he, I don't think he's forgotten to shoot the basketball. That's not what this is about. And I do think that there are things in a series where, you could just sprinkle it in, see what's going on there. So Duncan Robinson's management team, apparently, they tweeted out an article. And the article was of The Athletic, and it was a recap of Game 5. And it says, Duncan Robinson gets loose. Lakers have a rough night. Game 5 observations. And his management group, which is called, forgive me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, Glushan Sports Management. And they tweeted out exactly 19 months ago today. It was May 9th. Exactly 19 months ago today, Duncan Robinson put up 26 points, including 7 3-pointers, in a win in the 2020 NBA Finals. And then they put emojis. And emojis are always sometimes the key thing, Got to look and see. So they got a rocket emoji, a fire emoji, then a wink emoji, fire emoji, rocket emoji. The wink is making a stink. Now, Duncan's not making a stink. Himself on the record, he's out there, team guy. His quotes of it were very, very respectable. In fact, let me get them for you here. He said he said something to the effect of, I'm going to do whatever the team, if they want me to play, they want me to play. If they don't, they don't. He says, I'm on the court. My job is to play basketball to the best of my abilities to help us win. If I'm not on the court, help us win. If it's that they're being a supportive teammate, that's what I do. I told that to the writers after practice one day. So it is interesting that we have a tweet here from the management crew that is, essentially going out there and saying to themselves, hey, what about our guy? And that's what management should do. They represent Duncan. They don't represent the Miami Heat. Maybe Duncan Robinson, after the season is over, will have a tell-all on his podcast about the frustrations of this year. I'm sure it's frustrating. You go and you are who you've always been, the player you've always been. You get this big contract, and they're not starting you. And the Heat, look, to the Heat's credit, whether you want to, maybe you think this is a good thing, a bad thing, they will move on to a guy who is making a ton of money. It's just the cycle they go. If they think an undrafted guy is a better chance to win, they'll go with that guy. Hassan Whiteside, they eventually benched his ass. James Johnson making a ton of money, not playing. Dion Waiters, same thing. In fact, Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn were taking minutes from those guys when those guys had big deals. So it is a bit of a cycle of life when it comes to the Miami Heat. So I give the Miami Heat credit of not feeling handcuffed to make moves with Duncan's contract. They're still sitting him if they think that's the best thing to win. The thing that I think is fascinating about it, it's not really about Duncan Robinson's ability to make three-pointers. I think it's about a couple things. One, Max Strus seems like he's got less of a conscience than Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson has been very open and honest and in his head and the mental games that he plays. And interestingly enough, about that game 5, you remember he had the talks about how Jimmy Butler had to have a big talk with him in his hotel room at the bubble. Encourage him. No Goran Dragic, Bam playing with one arm. They needed Duncan Robinson. They really did. He's out there with Kelly Olynyk and a teenage Tyler Hero. Like, you needed Duncan Robinson. And in this case, it's a Miami Heat team that feels like the shooting elsewhere is good enough, and there's pluses on the other side of the floor. Max Strus can run the floor a little bit better. Max Strus can defend a little bit better. Max Strus will get the shots up to be more aware of the spacing and all that type of stuff. Duncan Robinson, not the three-point shooting year, even to his own admission that he had hoped that he had. But I think we all know what we saw him do in the first playoff game this year, where he basically lit up the Atlanta Hawks, hitting 7 3-pointers, hitting that, for the 4th time in his career, I think it is, or something like that in the postseason. A crazy amount of times that he's breached that mark. He's got the Heat 3-point shooting record. He's the most prolific shooter the organization has ever had. I don't know if anybody will touch him. I mean, maybe somebody will one time, by the time we're shooting 4-pointers out of our butt in basketball. Who knows what the hell is going to happen. But he really hasn't changed who he is as a player. He's kind of been who he's been, and I do think that he's made some improvements. And I will say to Duncan Robinson, for a defensive end, this dude gets no respect from the referees. I mean, I'm not saying he should be out there treated like Patrick Beverley or Marcus Smart or hell, Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler with the physicality he should be able to play with. But I swear to God, if Duncan breathes on a guy, they call a foul on him. Like, they give him no shot to compete, it feels like. I feel like they give Max Strus, I feel like they give more of a chance to compete, be a little bit physical. I feel like if Duncan Robinson side-eyes a guy, they'll call a whistle on him sometimes. And I don't know if it's a way he carried himself. I remember asking about this year. Like, do you think that having the contract, being a more established player in this league will get him more respect? And his answer was something to the effect of, you kind of hope that the referees don't feel that way, like they don't take that into interpretation. But how do they not? We see Kyle Lowry. He's out there negotiating left and right every single possession. I'm sure the referees are more conscious of, maybe I just don't want to deal with Kyle Lowry's belly aching, as opposed to Duncan Robinson, who's going to grab his jersey frustrated and, probably move up the court. Now the question comes, okay, so all that being said, should he play? Should Duncan Robinson play? And this is what I would say. I think for me, it's not like an absolute I would play Duncan Robinson, but to keep him out of the rotation at this point, if things do go sideways with the shooting, seems a little bit silly. I know that the Heat don't exactly bask in the whole, it's a result, it's all about the results. I know that this is a process organization, and good shots are good shots, and good shots are going to fall, and you got to go with the math. But also, we got to deal with the humanity side of this too. This is the playoffs. Guys are getting to play tight. Guys are going to play a little bit nervous. Max Strus getting into fouling out of a game, only taking 5 shots. A lot of people, if that was Duncan Robinson, they would be killing Max Strus. But because Max Strus is now the adorable undrafted story, you don't crush him as much. Guys, when they make a salary, like, they have an expectation of performance, and the critiques follow as such. And for me, I just feel like you're at a point right now, you're at a critical game 5, a critical juncture of the season. You're facing adversity for the first time in the postseason. And if Max Strus isn't up for it, especially if you're in a shootout type of game where you need to match the Sixers shot for shot, if George Yang is out, if Danny Green has a hot game, and you got to have some kind of shooting. If he would have had mediocre shooting, not even good shooting, they would have had an inkling of shooting. If anybody could have hit a couple of threes, we're maybe coming here for a gentleman's sweep tonight. But instead, you're facing yourself a real big swing game scenario. And so in that case, I just think that Duncan Robinson should be left on standby. Like, don't just dismiss it. If Max Strus is having a tough game, put Duncan Robinson out there for a few minutes. See if he hits his first couple of threes. If he doesn't, yank his ass. And then, move on to plan C, whatever it is. But for him, maybe to be a plan 1A, if Max Strus isn't living up to what he can do, I'm definitely for the Miami Heat trying that out and seeing what Duncan Robinson has to bring to the table, for sure. As far as his management team concerned, I don't think it's going to be a thing. Certainly he'll be asked about it. I think he'll do his aw shucks adorbs dunk thing that gets him, he'll be able to temper it pretty quickly. Guy goes out of his way not to say anything controversial on his podcast. So I think as such, he'll dismiss whatever that was, or, and plus, as far as shade goes, it is a bit of a reach. I'll give you that for a wink emoji. But I always say, if you want to make a stink, do it with a wink, It's an interesting thing for sure. What'll happen for there. Also, one thing that should be mentioned, no fine for Joel Embiid for doing the DX suck it motion, huh? That's interesting to me. Joel Embiid can go out here and he can be Shawn Michaels and he can tell people to suck it. But Jimmy Butler can't hump the air. Riddle me that, Batman. How is that something? That Jimmy Butler can't make a little love to the air, enjoy the success of his teammates, but Joel Embiid can go out there and is going to be like, let's get ready to suck it. And Jimmy Butler can't hump the air. I ask you, is that right? Does that seem right? Doesn't seem right to me. I feel like you should be able to, and I'm not saying Joel Embiid should get fined. But to me, the fact that Jimmy Butler was fined, ridiculous. Ridiculous that Jimmy Butler got fined for humping the air, and you're not going to fine Joel Embiid for doing D-Generation X. I think that you should rescind the fine from Jimmy Butler, appeals process on the grounds of the idea that Jimmy Butler was fined when Joel Embiid was not. I would bring this to appeals court and I would say, how can you fine for this and not for this? I rest my case. How do we not have that? Seems like it would make perfect sense to me. Jimmy got hosed in this case, man. He got hosed. So, Game 5 tonight. We'll see what happens and what's going down. It was a lot of people being rats off a ship. I saw a lot of the analysts. They're all switching their picks. Good. I didn't want you here anyway. And by the way, what's the point of making a pre-series pick if you're going to be rats off a ship on it? Stick with your pick or get the hell out of here. And at least a team pick. All right, you're not going to be your game pick. You want to change your games? Fine. But you're going to just be me. Looking at you, JJ Redick. All right? Claimed Heat lifer. This is why you're not Heat culture. Dude, hell out of here. One more thing to point out. This Monty Williams getting coach of the year. Okay? Good for him. Happy for him, right? Good guy. Everybody seems to love Monty Williams. All right? When he lost the finals going to the locker room graduate, seems like an top-notch, A-plus dude. Here's the thing, though. All right? My bigger issue is Eric Spoelstra getting one first-place vote. One. This continues to be a crazy thing with the Heat Awards this year. Like, Tyler Hero, you had to be undressed obvious that Tyler Hero was Sixth Man of the Year for the Heat to have a chance at an award, And for me, I'm looking at this situation, and I'm saying to myself, usually Coach of the Year, which is kind of a cursed award. A lot of guys get fired after winning it. But it's usually, we got it wrong about your team award, right? It's usually, the Cavaliers were a lot better than we thought. Let's get JB Bickerstaff some love. That's kind of how it usually goes, right? But for me, the thing that's crazy about it is, it's like almost because Eric Spoelstra is like expected greatness, you're kind of not saying he's doing his best coaching job, where the Suns were in the finals last year. It's the same team that came back. So yes, they were overwhelmingly the best team. Good for them. But there had to be some expectations that the Suns were going to be very, very good. Not that the Heat weren't expected to be good, but the Heat certainly weren't expected to be the 1 seed. The Suns being a 1 seed really shouldn't be that crazy a case. They were in the finals last year. And Eric Spoelstra had to deal with no Jimmy Butler for a quarter of the season, no Bam Adebayo for a quarter of the season, no Kyle Lowry for a bunch of the games of the season, and 8 undrafted guys on his team. I mean, 7 to 8 undrafted guys on your team. How does that not get more respect from the voters? How? Monty Williams get the award. I'm not going to sit here and bellyache about it too much. Good for him. But for Eric Spoelstra, for one person to think he was the best coach this year, when nobody thought the Heat would be a 1 seed. All right, 5th seed, they're built for the regular season. And not only did it, but did it with an unhealthy roster and undrafted guys. You never heard of Max Strus. You don't know who Caleb Martin is. You've never heard of Omer Yurtseven. Get the hell out of here. And Monty Williams, all respect, brought back a finals roster. And he's getting like, let's give it to him. This dude Spoelstra, he never gets the respect. Never gets the respect he deserves. It's crazy to me that this guy has gone his entire career, never won the award. Not that he's wanted it. You know, he could give a rat's ass. But the fact that he's sitting here and he's like, Taylor Jenkins, surprises. All right, Taylor Jenkins is kind of in the realm of Grizzlies were a lot better than we thought they were. He's in the mix. I understand he's going to get votes. Monty Williams, I feel like a lot of people thought he probably should have gotten it last year, so he's kind of getting the rub this year. But his team being unexpectedly good was not the case. Maybe they were a lot better than the good that they were thought to be. But come on, dude. They were in the finals last year. You're telling me that that's more of a surprise than Eric Spoelstra having the Heat as the 1 seed? It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. One mother bleeping first place vote. One. Anyway, that's my rant for today.